Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Costa Mesa Sanitary District Citizens Advisory Committee meeting of July 17th. Yeah, July 17th. We'll call this meeting to order at, where are we at, 6? This says 6 o'clock straight up.
Okay.
We'll go with the iPad. We'll start with roll call.
Chair Mike Carey,
Present.
Vice Chair Albert Graham Jr., Andrew Nielsen,
Present.
Elodie Katz, here. Judith Gilo, here. Judy Takaya, here. Mike McElroy, here. Monty Fields, Phil Marsh, Stephen Takahashi, Sue Lester.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the first item, which is approving the minutes of our May 16th meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I already skipped right back. I already messed up. I apologize. We'll go into public comments if there's anybody from the public that would like to speak. Thank you, Mr. Mosier.
Harry, members of the committee, my name is Jim Mosier. As you know, the directors of the district hold 2 meetings a month, one a regular meeting and one a study session. I understand that at their August study session, they'll be hearing about recycling in terms of how the district generates its reports about what is contained in. I understand they're going to be hearing a report about what the district collects from the mixed trash carts and how much of that is recycled. And as you know, also, the what is collected from those mixed carts goes to a recycling center in Stanton, much like Chair Carey's operation at the Orange Coast College, but on a grander scale. And like his operation, the CR&R company knows what comes out the end. They know how many aluminum cans there are, how much glass, how many newspapers, how much has to be deemed going to the landfill. They weigh all of that. But at the going in end, everything is commingled together. What comes from this district, what comes from Newport Beach, what comes from the city of Orange, it all goes in together. So the district has to generate a report each month, or actually annually, showing how much of what came out came from this district, and making that connection when you don't know for sure whether those aluminum cans came from here or from Orange or from Newport Beach is a difficult proposition. And it's done in a way that I don't think is too reliable. And so I can't guarantee this is going to happen at the August study session, but when it does, it's a topic you may be interested in, and you want to hear the presentation or watch it on video. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other members from the public are present, so we'll move on to approving the minutes of our May 16th meeting. Seems like so long ago. Did everybody have a chance to review those? Okay. Moved by Member Katz. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I abstain. I wasn't here. I did read them, though.
Okay. Duly noted. Next is to receive and file the approved Board of Directors regular meeting minutes of May 23rd, 2019. That's just receive and file. Next would be the draft amended Board of Directors regular meeting minutes of June 27th. That's also receive and file.
Can I have 2 comments on that?
Certainly.
So I just saw in the summary the solid waste rate change was approved.
Yes.
And then the regular board of directors meeting is now 4th Tuesday of every month at 4:30 p.m.
That might change because there's a conflict with our district council, so we're going to bring that back next week for discussion.
Okay.
Okay, next up on our agenda is item number 4. It's a debriefing of the general manager's attendance to the 2019 International City Management Conference in
Qingdao.
Qingdao?
Qingdao, China, yes. Thank
Look
you,
forward to
Mr.
hearing this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, committee members. This is the same presentation that I gave to the Board of Directors on June 27th. So I am a member of the International City County Management Association, ICMA. They're an organization that advances professional local government through leadership, management, innovation, and ethics. They also, according to their website, their organization helps local governments in the United States create sustainable, livable, and resilient communities by researching and sharing leading management strategies and practices. They also work outside the U.S. They provide peer-to-peer technical assistance, training, and resources to assist municipalities in developing and decentralizing countries to develop local capacity and promote governance. They work with over 170 countries, which includes China. And in 2011, ICMA China Center was established as a partnership with ICMA. And the China University of Political Science and Law partnered with ICMA on sharing information with each other. They also facilitate training, research, and as I mentioned, information sharing and conferences and exchange. So on June 9th through 10th, 2019, the city of Qingdao had their city managers conference and invited ICMA representatives. So ICMA invited me to participate in this group. And so, of course, I said yes. And on June 6th, I left Los Angeles LAX and flew to Beijing, which is a 12-hour flight. So we left about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're 15 hours ahead of us. So we got there about 6 p.m. And then I had to go on the next domestic flight from Beijing to Qingdao, and that's where Qingdao is located on the Yellow Sea. It's a tourist town, tourist city. It's a beautiful city. It's actually also the headquarters of China's Navy, so their headquarters down there. And so by the time I got to the hotel, it was around 11 o'clock their time, so it was like an 18, 19-hour day. It was a long day. So that was on Friday. So Saturday we did see a little bit of the sightseeing in Qingdao. It was raining on this day on Saturday, and this is on top of Signal Hill. It's called Signal Hill. You'll notice all the red roofs up here. That's because of German influence. Back in the early 19th century, the city was occupied by Germany during the colonization period when all the European countries were colonizing Southeast Asia. So you'll see a lot of these buildings are still being used by the Chinese officials. The Germans were kicked out of Qingdao in the 20s by the Japanese, which then occupied the town through World War II, to the end of World War II. And I thought what was ironic, like I said, you see a lot of German influence. One of the biggest influences, of course, beer, right? If you've seen Qingdao, you can buy this actually here. They have their brewery in Qingdao, and this is based because of the Germans. The Germans started, one of the first things they did when they got there was start a brewery. And so there's a very popular beer in worldwide. So you'll see a lot of German influence, but you see very little Japanese influence, and that's probably because of the treatment that they treated the Japanese during World War II, which is very harsh. So I thought that was very, very unique. So one thing I really noticed about Qingdao is how clean it was. It was one of the cleanest cities I've ever been in. There's people, men and women, in these orange suits all over the city, sweeping streets and sidewalks. I did not see a cigarette butt. I didn't see anything in the street. It was so clean. I couldn't believe how clean the city was. So this was Saturday night. They had the welcome dinner with the ICMA representatives and the officials, Chinese officials from Qingdao and from the universities. And the one thing Chinese officials do when they have guests for dinner is they feed you, and they feed you a lot of food. This was the food on the menu, and it just kept on coming. What I heard, it's very disrespectful if their guests leave hungry, so they make sure that you're very full. So that was a lot of food. So this is a picture of me after the dinner. To my right and to your left, his name is Sun Wei. He's the Deputy Director General of Qingdao Urban Administrative Bureau. And then on the right to my left is Gao Bo, member of Standing Committee of the CPC Xibai District Committee, Director of General Offices. So Qingdao is in the Xibai District, which is kind of like a county. So he would be like a county representative. So on Sunday, we toured Qingdao, and they showed us a lot of stuff they're doing about government efficiencies. And this was interesting about these maps they're showing us and how they're really big on big data. In fact, if you watch, anyone watch 60 Minutes last Sunday? They were talking about artificial intelligence and how the Chinese are really big on artificial intelligence and face recognition. And they talked about that when we were here. They were really big on face recognition and how proud they were about their technology and all their big data. And the one thing, though, what they do very well with their data and all these maps, but one thing I asked in this question was, well, because they were showing us on the map the lid for a gas line. And said, this is how we know when our gas lines are and how we maintain the gas lines. And I said, well, where are your sewer pipes? How do you know what you maintain your sewer systems? And they kind of looked at me in embarrassment. Well, we really don't know where our sewers are. In fact, I sent you a letter. There's a copy of a newspaper here about how they keep their sewer systems unclogged. They actually send people down into their sewer systems and physically move it by hand, which is unheard of out here. So yeah, it's definitely, I think as I said, they're very high in technology, but the three things that I would say they're very behind on is solid waste, wastewater, and water. We couldn't drink the water there. Everything had to be bottled water. You cannot drink the water in China. So this is us in our group. This is again, this was at a Xibai District office talking about urban planning, and again, they showed us a lot of maps and digital information. It was very impressive of what they're using. So then later that day, we talked about trash, and as you know, China has been prospering very well in the last 20 years. Actually, in the last 30 years, China was very poor. As you know, they have significant buying power now. It was evident when I was there in Beijing and in Qingdao. We see nice cars. They're driving nice cars. We saw a lot of people buying stuff. So they have a lot of buying power, which is accumulating a lot of trash. And they just don't know what to do with this. And so they're trying to get people to recycle. In fact, their goal is to recycle a third of their trash by next year. And so this is what they were trying to do in the business, where you would take your paper, and throw it in the blue. Your hazardous waste would be like a light bulb or a battery, and then your trash. So that's how they were trying to separate on the business side. On the residential side, they had these metal containers, and all there was in here was a plastic liner. So they had garbage, and then they had recycling. And you can see one problem here is you see garbage says here, but it says recycling. So that's a little challenging. And basically, that was supposed to serve all these people here. So everyone in China live in high-rises. You don't find single-family homes like you do in the United States because they don't own property. They own these little apartments is what they own. So this is what it looks like at this one building, just rows of these trash containers. So people have to bring their trash down along with recyclables. So it's very labor-intensive for the residents, and it's very labor-intensive for the city officials to remove the trash. So this was me talking to the officials. I asked them about the hazardous waste. Well, what do you do with sharps? Because you don't want sharps in the trash because it could prick, the workers. And they didn't know what I was talking about. And so I had to show them how we collect sharps in containers. And that's me showing what a container looks like. And so they thought that was very useful. Then this was interesting. This is a recycling bin that they use. Basically, residents would get a card, and they swipe it right here, and it would open this lid, and they can throw their recyclables, which I thought was, it might have been very useful here in the United States to deter scavenging. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then this is the city manager in Virginia. His name's Bob, and we were going into a roundtable discussion with city officials. And this was a very interesting. So we had an interpreter. While they were speaking Chinese, we had someone we can hear an interpreter in our ear English, and it was vice versa when we were speaking English. But the challenge that they're facing is is how they're having a hard time convincing people to recycle. People are not recycling, and so there's a what do we do? Do we start finding people? Do we need to do more in our education? So they're really struggling, and the main reason why they're struggling is because they're not telling the residents the environmental impacts the recycling has. What are the benefits for recycling? They're more almost like they're being forced to do this, and so it's creating a lot of not resentment, but a lot of confusion, I would say. In fact, I did also with you is a story on The Guardian. Shanghai just implemented mandatory recycling. They're the first city that did this in July, and if you read this, you can see how confused they are on as far as what they need to separate, and they're coming down hard on people. They are finding people in Shanghai, and so Beijing could probably be the next city to do this, but in Qingdao they were struggling, and it's just very again. How do you convince their residents that it's important to do this? So that was me just talking. So then Tuesday was the actual conference. This is where I was one of the keynote speakers at the conference talking about our programs here. And so there were about 300 officials here from the city, the district, as well as university officials. And this was kind of interesting. So we talked about basically our programs here. So I was, we've gone international is what I would say. So that's me bowing to the crowd before my presentation. And so I talked about, our programs. And one of the things I had to do with my presentation, if you notice, I had to convert the metrics into Chinese metrics. Their metrics are different than ours. So I had to, instead of pounds, I had to use tons. So it was, had to go back to my college days and try to remember what that was like. So talked about the anaerobic digestion system and how we do our mixed waste and how we're really on the cutting edge versus everyone else, not only in California but the United States. And then show the board, what the board looks like. So then that day we went back to Beijing, and the next day we went to the United Nations building in Beijing. And here was interesting. I didn't speak at this meeting, but we had a roundtable. And this is where our ICMA delegate that was with us from Denmark, he was there. And he talked about what Denmark does with trash. And what they do is very fascinating. In Denmark, landfills are illegal in Denmark. They do not allow landfills. They burn their trash. And this is an incinerator. In fact, they burn their trash in China too, which was really caught us off guard that they don't believe in landfills because it creates a lot of odors. Well, of course it does, but they have to, bury it properly and use certain steps to prevent the odors, but they believe in burning their trash, and so does Denmark. But what Denmark does, what I thought was really fascinating, is here's the smokestack, right? But it's not smoke that comes out here, it's actually steam, because what they do is they treat the smoke before it emits into the atmosphere. So what's really coming out is steam, not smoke. And then they make it into a multi-purpose use. This is actually a ski slope. So, and I don't know where they go up. I think this might be just a rendering or something, but where it goes up. But this is supposed to be snow and trees where people actually ski down this incinerator. Now, he wouldn't tell me how much it cost. He didn't know how much it cost to construct or how much it cost to maintain, which I thought was quite interesting. But they have about 25 of these all around the country. And then I thought also what's fascinating is that they barcode their trash carts. And so when the trash guy comes down and picks up their cart, they will lift up the cart and see if it's contaminated. If it's contaminated, they won't pick it up. They'll just drive away, and the resident will come back and say, "Hey, how come you didn't pick up my cart?" Well, that's why they scan it. They'll pull it up on their system. Well, yeah, we were there at this time and date, but it was contaminated, so now you got to go take it. So it's total accountability. The residents got to dispose of it, not the city. And then they do have drop-off sites like we do here for recycling and household hazardous waste. That's a picture of one of the drop-off sites. That's just me, a picture with one of the university professors at the UN building. So that was the end of that, and then I think that was Tuesday. I was going to come home on Wednesday, so we had a little bit of time of sightseeing. So this is me in Tiananmen Square. These are some college girls that helped us out. They were great help with us. Their teacher is the director of the China ICMA Center, and so this is Lily, Luja, and May, and it's hard to see here, but on her hat it says freedom. And this was a week after, this is Tiananmen Square, this is a week after the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Massacre. And so there was 100,000 people all around here 30 years ago. And so we're quizzing the girls, hey, do you know what happened here 30 years ago? And they had a kind of idea, but the Chinese government does not tell their people what happened, and to this day we still don't know how many people were killed on Tiananmen Square. But it was very, very busy. There were people all around Tiananmen Square. Every once in a while I'll see a peace sign going around, so you see these kids still trying to be a little bit rebellious, but not enough to attract the attention of the government officials. So this was our group. This was in front of the Forbidden Palace, or the Forbidden City. It was closed by the time we got there. But in our group, this gentleman right here, this is David Johnson. He's the past president of ICMA, and he's a retired city manager from Candiac, Canada. And then this right here, this is Norton Bonaparte. He's the city manager of Sanford, Florida. This is Karen Pincos. She's current president of ICMA and the city manager of El Cerritos in Northern California. And then this is Bob Cowell. He's the city manager of Roanoke, Virginia. This is Berna, and I cannot pronounce her last name because she's Turkish, and I'll just murder it. But she's the program manager for ICMA in China Center. And this is Natasha Hampton. She's the city manager from the city of Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And this is Ib Rasmussen. He's the CFO, CIO for Fox Municipality in Denmark. So that was our ICMA delegation. And then again, that's the picture of the Forbidden City. This is one of the, I thought this one, they have portable bathrooms, you remember? So actually I had to take a picture for the board. They do have portable bathrooms there. And then we had dinner with the university officials. This is the vice president, Jing Bao Gao, I think I pronounced it. He's the president of China University. And so giving him a gift from CMSD. And then my last day on Wednesday, I did go see the Great Wall. The great thing about they did have these trams to go up there. This was probably the best investment the Chinese government ever made. They take us right up to the wall, which is fantastic. So that's me and Lu Zhang, and we walked all the way down here, and it's hard to see. These are steps, and these aren't steps, and you can see people are hanging on to the bars because it is so steep. It's amazing how steep it is, and it's amazing how they even constructed this facility. It's no wonder it's one of the great wonders of the world. It's fascinating. And then that's just us on top on the wall, and that's pretty much the conclusion of my presentation. So as I mentioned in the staff report, not one penny of district money was used on this strip. It was 100% funded by the China University and by ICMA. So it was, I appreciate the board of directors supporting me to go and represent CMSD internationally. So like I said, we've gone international, and it was a trip of a lifetime. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great.
What is the funding source of the organization you said that sponsors it? Is that from municipalities?
Yeah, the ICMA is funded by dues. It's dues from, and they have over 9,000 members. So the dues from the memberships, and I don't know what other revenue sources they use, but primarily it's dues.
Districts members or individuals members?
Individuals. So I'm an individual. Yes. So. All right.
Any other
What
questions?
would you say was like your single most valuable takeaway that you got from that?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, the most single thing I took away is that while they're very well advanced technology, they're really behind when it comes to your basic infrastructure, wastewater, solid waste, water, the essentials that you need, right? I'm really surprised how far behind they're. I would say they're 20, 25 years behind where we are when it comes to that.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Oh, no, go
How
ahead.
long have they been recycling? I know they're having some trouble. It's confusing to some people, but how long have they been trying it?
They've been talking about for at least about 10 years, but I'd say over the last maybe 5 years, they've been really aggressively trying to encourage their residents to recycle, because they're trying to meet that goal next year to recycle a third. But
Do they know what their rate is now?
it's nowhere near that. I don't know exactly, but they've got a ways to go.
And then do they have any sort of composting or
I didn't see anything like that. No, I did not. No.
Was the air pollution significant when?
It really wasn't. Jingdao was very clean. Beijing, surprisingly, I remember 20 years ago in Los Angeles how smoggy was, it would hurt your lungs, and I was expecting that in Beijing. Didn't feel that at all. But, it could have been I wasn't outside Beijing very much. So you saw at the Great Wall, it was blue skies. Air was great. No problem there. Beijing was extremely crowded, though. Cars and people everywhere. I think there's 30 million people in that city. I mean, it's amazing how it makes New York City look like a small city.
Do they stop at red lights now, or is that still optional?
No, it's still optional. You're taking your life in your own hands. Yeah. Well, David wanted to go ride a bike around Beijing, and I told him, you're crazy riding a bike in this city because they don't stop for nothing. Yeah.
It's kind of exciting, though. If you get in the back of a rickshaw, it's like you kind of see your life flash before your eyes.
Yeah.
But great experience.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
interesting country.
Yeah, it is, definitely. Absolutely. And they're a great host. They're a fantastic host. You think with the tensions we have with our two national governments, but at the locals, on the local level, we're very friendly, willing to share information. It was not what you hear in the newspaper of the tension that you see with our two countries, our two governments. It's not like that at all on the local level.
Thank you very much, Scott. That was a very interesting report, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for representing the district and the residents of Costa Mesa.
Definitely. Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is the inflow and infiltration at Mendoza Pump Station, the smoke test. Rob, you'll be presenting that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Rob's going to give this presentation, but I'll just give you a little background. So Rob's going to explain to you what is inflow and infiltration. In a nutshell, basically, inflow is water, like from rain or from sprinklers going into our system, and we want to prevent that going in our system because when the sewer system is inundated with rainwater, it could back up the treatment plants. So we try to prevent that. And Rob will explain to you what we've done in the past. Unfortunately, in January and December, we had those significant storm weathers. The rain that got into our system was more than we expected. And so we narrowed it down to, we think Mendoza Pump Station is the culprit. And so Rob's going to explain to you what is smoke testing and how is that going to help us find to reduce inflow into our sewer system. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Mike, and CAC members. Happy to be back again. And we're still working on the vault back there at President Pump Station like we talked about. And then we're headed towards option 2. And I'd like to say that for your work was very compelling to the board and staff, your opinion. So that was really great. So I think we're headed in the right direction. So thank you again for everything on President Pump Station. So as you read in the staff report, rainwater is not supposed to be in the sewer. Not at all. It's actually prohibited to be in the sewer. Our regional sewer agency, Orange County Sanitation District, has to build capacity for all the wastewater in mid to northern Orange County. They also have to build capacity for all the rainwater that gets in there and underground water that infiltrates in. They have to build capacity for that too, because when they treat the water, it all comes in mixed. And there are spots in mid to northern Orange County and all the cities that were identified in a $5 to $10 million study they did back in 2005. And the Costa Mesa area, our service area, was identified as having a lot of inflow. And as our general manager Scott said, inflow is rainwater that goes into the holes in the top of the manhole and into the space between the ring and the cover. And it can go in there at a high rate, especially when intersections are flooded, like you all know Pomona and 17th. There was a surfboard went through there last year, and a guy on it paddling through. So we determined that we have inflow, not infiltration. The groundwater table is very low. So water that soaks into the ground does not go into the sewer. It's mainly surface water. on big storms that flood our manhole covers. So what we did was, and we've been at this for some time now, around 2010, is we plug those holes in the manhole cover and we put sealant between the ring and the cover. And that prevents water from getting in there. It also prevents air from getting out, and it's not really recommended because a manhole is a good place for an overflow to occur. But if you seal up all your manholes and you have a backup, it's going to back up into somebody's house. So we do plug and seal our manholes. That's our best course right now of preventing inflow. And as Scott said, our Mendoza pump station is our biggest offender. We do have inflow in the rest of the district, but the most severe area is Mendoza pump station tributary area. Gina, is there an attachment at the bottom of the report, please, that might show the Mendoza area? If it is, please put it up there. So we did plug and seal a lot of manholes. We've had storms of an inch of rain where we have kept out all the rainwater. Not when we get a real big storm between 2 and 3 inches, but when there's maybe 1 inch, we have a good chance at it. So we know that Mendoza pump station is an area subject to inflow. So the next step in determining where it is a process called smoke testing. We need to spend more money to find it. And what we do is, it's a very smart, very effective way to find the connections into the sewer. We'll call them illegal connections for starters. Imagine somebody's backyard. Doesn't drain, gets wet, ponding during the winter. Well, what if they put a drain in there and dig down and tie that into their sewer lateral? Well, that solves their backyard problem, and it passes the problem on to us. Very good. If you can scroll up and down and show them the south boundary and the north boundary, and yes, it's that heavy purple line, is the tributary area to the pump station. And that's the pump station right there. So how do we know that there's water coming in there? Because we have a SCADA system on our pump stations. The run time of the pumps during the storm is longer than during the dry times. So therefore, that's the rainwater. So we know that, for starters, that the fairgrounds is an offender. They have areas that are open to the sky that are tied to the sewer, because the water board, the state water board, told them you are not allowed to have sheep and goat washdown areas go into the storm drain. So that means put it in the sewer. But we require areas that are tied to the sewer to be covered so it doesn't get in. But they have some big areas, and they fixed one of them, but they have a couple more. So we know they're offenders. So what are we going to do now? We're going to do a smoke testing project. They're going to take about 1,000 feet of sewer and take a smoke machine and drive smoke into the main line. And the smoke will go up all the connections, everyone's lateral, and it will come out of their house. If there are no illegal connections, it'll come out on the vent at the top of the house. If smoke comes out in their backyard, nowhere near any plumbing fixtures, well, that's a possibility that that's an illegal connection. So they're we're going to smoke test approximately half of the whole Mendoza tributary area the first pass through. And we think we can find it just by doing half. Because in the second half, there are a lot of tracks that have small yards and everything. So we're going to take this next step. We know we have to spend some money to do this and do it right. We are hiring a smoke expert. They're staffed with professional engineers like myself, and we will get a thorough report when it's done. So then if we find illegal connections, we can ask people to terminate those since they are illegal, and we'll take steps depending on what we find. We will be notifying everybody what we're doing when we do it. We'll be calling the police department and the fire department because they're the first responders when somebody sees smoke and calls 911. So you'll probably, if you live over in that area, you may see us go by and you'll see our notification and all. But we're hoping that we get to that soon and remove these illegal connections. So that is our forward thinking and our next attempt at reducing our inflow and infiltration. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have a time when this will possibly start?
Start? Yes, it could start in maybe a month. We're taking it to, we may be taking it to the board of directors this month. And if we do, there's a little budget adjustment that goes with it, but the expense is not that great. So it's a project we could do starting soon. And we look forward to doing it before the rainy season.
You'll start this with smoke directly towards the Mexico mark, track homes there.
We're probably going to start down in the fairgrounds area. This is the east part of the fairgrounds. The west part over here, here's the east part. The west part goes into Arlington this way and that way. The east part goes this way. Well, this line, this goes this way and up, and it goes through that area up to Mendoza. So you can see that it is a large tributary area, but we think that this area and this area, we know that there's a pond here, Tewinkle Park, there's a sewer line under it, and they claim it's not open to water, but we'll make sure of that. So this line goes to the National Armory, is that what it's called? The Armory?
Yeah.
Right. So, and then up in this area. So that's our plan.
How would you determine if there's an illegal connection in a backyard? How would you monitor?
Well, we would knock on their door and ask to go look at it while the smoke's coming out and try to not make accusatory statements but more explain the problem than try to have it be told to them at that point in time what they're actually doing. Pools are connected to the sewer system, but we don't believe that during a storm that people are emptying their pool into the sewer system. It doesn't usually happen during a storm. So although pools do discharge to the sewer system, we don't believe that that is part of the problem. More open areas, like for instance, the fairgrounds had a huge parking lot that flooded. They would just go pull a sewer manhole and drain the entire parking lot. And fortunately for us, they fixed that part. But there are some other areas. So it's not easy. And we're not the only one who are big II offenders. There are other sewer agencies that contribute a lot of rainwater or underground water into the sewer system. It's kind of a fact of life.
Mike,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
I have a question.
Director Schaefer?
Certainly, Director Schaefer.
Are the fairgrounds involved in this with us?
We haven't told them yet
Yeah.
because the project has not been approved yet. The board needs to approve the project and the funding, and I think the funding for half with everything included is less than $50,000. So assuming the board's on board for it, yes, we could start soon. And the first thing we would do would be to go sit down with them, because actually it'd be nice not to tell them and do it and find out for ourselves, because I have a feeling if we tell them, they may close some openings into the sewer that maybe we don't know about. But we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, working backwards, I just want to make sure I understand kind of what the issue is. So the pump station, you know there's a problem in this area because the differential from when it's raining, when it's not.
Exactly.
And when it exceeds its capacity, is the problem occur at the pump station, or does the pump station continue to pump everything to the wastewater treatment area?
The pump station doesn't know rainwater from wastewater, so it keeps running during the storm. And we don't exceed the capacity of the system. We've never had a backup or an overflow in a large rainstorm, including a 100-year storm. As you saw in the staff report, we have had Mendoza Pump Station probably runs 8 hours a day, both pumps, not all at one time. A total of 4 hours on this pump, 4 hours on that pump, 8 hours. Well, during a big storm, it ran an extra 6 hours. So that's a lot. And it's pumping almost 1,000 gallons a minute. So it does add up fast.
So then the risk is at the treatment center. In theory, if there was enough areas, not just in this district, but in all districts that feed it, that it could exceed the treatment center's capacity. That's one issue. And then two, they would just be treating unnecessary water, which would increase costs, I guess.
Yes, it did. It did increase costs when they went to full secondary treatment. They had to pay for that capacity. And yes, it's a risk to them. They're very smart, though. They have, I don't think they've exceeded their capacity ever either. They have ways of sending some of the plant 1 effluent down to plant 2, but it's a big concern with them, and they have supported local agencies like us doing projects like this. They do a great job as a regional agency. All us collection agencies, including cities, are handled very nicely by Orange County Sanitation District. They'll help on anything. They'll assist you in planning and engineering. They'll assist you during an emergency. They're a first-class organization. Yeah.
I have probably what's a silly question to ask, but I'll explain to you why I'm
Not
asking
really.
it.
Go ahead.
Is the area where the pump station is being overworked, is that primarily multi-family homes or rentals, like apartment buildings or?
Well, very good question. And I'm going to let Director Schaefer or Uten comment after I say something. All of this kind of looking area are tracts that are single-family homes.
Okay.
Sonora.
And we got fairgrounds down here. And then, those might be multifamily.
They are.
Border on Baker Street.
They are.
So, I don't think it's a lot of multifamily.
It's about 90% single family. It's called Mesa Del Mar.
Right.
This
Thank
is
you.
where I'm asking the question, and maybe it applies to single-family homes as well. But the building I live in, I've been there for 7 years. No one's ever cleaned the rain gutters. Okay? So, this last storm season we had, my patio and my front yard was flooded. So I climbed up there and I cleaned the rain gutters because I didn't want to deal with the property management company. It was unpleasant and it was horrible. And because it hadn't been done for such a long period of time, the rain gutters were literally solid with sludge. We don't get a lot of rain here. I'm wondering if part of the problem could in fact be that people are not cleaning their rain gutters, and when it rains, the water has nowhere to go, so it's hitting the ground and it's
Right, and it ponds up.
right, because in my neighborhood that is absolutely the problem of what happened. So I don't know if that
There are other things like, but those are great points, because it's the flooding that causes the inflow. The more the streets flood, the more the water gets into the manholes. There are manholes in the middle of alleys that slope towards the center. So we build up the manholes so the water goes around it. Plus we plug and seal. So we're going to be doing some serious plugging and sealing probably after the smoke test, before the rainy season. We've had 1,000 manholes plugged and sealed at the same time out of about 5,000 manholes.
wow.
Director Uden, you had a question or a comment?
Well, the Fairview Fairgrounds, I think should receive a lot of attention. It's a historical problem. When we plugged and sealed the homes, did we plug and seal their manholes?
We plugged and sealed in all kinds of streets. We plugged and sealed, as you know, manholes that were not in the center of the street. If a manhole was 10 feet from the gutter, we sealed it. If it was in an alley where water went through, sealed it. So,
I'm just wondering, are those private sewers over there?
no, everything you can see there, that's ours. That's in green.
Okay, so, yeah, I strongly suspicion it's the fairgrounds, but, we may have to go on a stepwise approach.
Yes, it's not going to be easy. We're not getting all this water out of one source. And we need to do this because we get inflow at all our pump stations. And this Mendoza's the worst. But after this, we need to go to the east side and take care of the north part of the east side from probably 21st Street to Mesa Drive, Newport to Irvine. We get inflow in there a lot. So that in this area are numbers 1 and 2. But we get it at all our pump stations.
Have you, we actively plugged in the seal probably 10 or 12 years ago. Is that-
About 10 years, you're right.
Yeah, is it an ongoing, and we clean the sewers almost annually,
Right.
which means the seal's removed.
They're supposed to reseal. The field crews, if they see plugged and sealed, they're supposed to redo it when they take the manhole cover off to clean. However, the corks that we put in the holes and the sealant but outside the ring do wear out. And I think that's what happened this past winter, is that we need to get back out there and re-plug and seal.
I would agree.
And that's pretty much what the source For agencies that have inflow, that's their number one way. Smoke testing, not many agencies do it. Some agencies do it themselves. South Coast Water District does it themselves. City of Fullerton does it themselves. And it takes a lot of people and experienced people. So this is our first smoke testing. But we're committed to doing our job, which is to reduce inflow and infiltration.
I understand this is on board to help in any way, and the regional board got very involved in the past, and I really think we need to put fear of God in that.
Right. Both the Orange County Sanitation District and the State Water Resources Control Board, under both of them, rainwater, in underground water, not allowed in the sewer system. You had a question?
To that point, I was just going to ask if a new, because there are some open air areas that have a need to go to the sewer instead of to the stormwater, like a washdown area that you referenced. So if somebody builds a new car wash or some other thing that calls for an open air area, is there something that diverts it when it rains? Like I know there's a system to you have a sensor on the roof and then it diverts it.
Yes, that's a rainwater valve that is automatically closes, and rainwater does not go into the sewer. Then when the storm is over, it opens back up automatically and allows like washdown water to go into the sewer where it belongs. So we make sure that on all new applications for any kind of sewer connection or redevelopment, no rainwater in the sewer. We make sure of that.
Mr. Mosher?
Hi.
Yeah, so does this company have any way to quantify the result in terms of, you see a lot of smoke coming up from different places, which would be the most productive to,
Yes, they're an engineering firm, and they do excellent reports as well. So we figure we're going to have a roadmap when this is done. It just doesn't seem conceivable. Well, if we do half the area and don't find anything, we're going to do the other half. We'll find it one way or the other because it just happened too it happens every time it rains. So, and having looked at SCADA, all this telemetry and stuff, the storms have intensities in different areas of the city, meaning that on one storm it's pounding rain over here, but not over here. Next storm, it's totally different. So this is the way to chase it down and the next logical step. So we'll find it. That's our goal. But we will have a very nice report when it's over. And I have called probably 8 large engineering firms and firms that I know do smoke testing. We've only been able to have a response from one of them, plus maybe a response from another one. So everyone's busy out there, and not a lot of people do this. That's why I can see that the agencies do it themselves. Anybody else?
Assuming the smoke tests move forward and you find illegal connections, am I understanding correctly, if that gets resolved, then you wouldn't need to plug and seal anymore? Or would there be additional plug and seal required to deal with the rainwater for?
We probably plug and seal anyway, just because the streets flood when there's a big storm. The illegal connections will probably deal with first knock on their door when the smoke's coming up, and then through a letter or a meeting, we'll go over that with them. So we'll get to the bottom of it. It's definitely illegal, and we do have the authority to make them terminate the connection.
Sure. And then with the plug and seal, you mentioned some of the risks. How do you determine which holes you plug and seal?
For instance, if, as I mentioned earlier, if a manhole cover's in the middle of an alley and the rainwater slopes to the center into the gutter, we plug and seal. Or if there's a manhole not in the middle of the street, there's usually a crown in the street. So the water goes that way into the curb and gutter. So if the manhole's over here next to the curb and gutter, we plug and seal. If it's in the middle, we go to the city and look at their map of flooded streets and make some decisions that way. So we use all the data we can. But we need to keep plugging and sealing.
So you're going to go to every house and inspect the backyard?
We're not going to need to go in the backyard. You can just walk down the street and you'll see it when it comes
A
out.
lot of smoke going in there to see that.
There will be, well, like I said, 1,000 feet at a time, that's not that big of an area. So it does take time to, there's 49,000 feet of sewer line there. So we're talking about 25,000 for the first half. And they're going to do 1,000 feet at a time. So that's like 25 days right there of work to get to the bottom of it. 25 days would be 5 weeks.
If only smoke is coming out of their normal look at. We just go in,
Yeah, but
if we see it.
Police are going to be, fire department's going to be
in the
busy.
backyard, it's not that one single event in the house.
Right.
Everybody has some work being done on their house inside where they have plumbing open. It's going
Well,
to
that-
fill up the
yeah,
house.
Yeah, but it might not rain in their house.
Good.
But
Hopefully, if they're lucky. Hopefully.
We had a lot of rain hit a trigger of ours on the Santa Ana Country Club. They were putting in new sewer, middle of the rainy season, replacing sewer, had the sewer trench open, not covered, and we got one of the biggest rains of all time. We almost backed up the system. Crazy. Not even smart enough to plug up their own sewer while they're building it. So you never know.
Okay, so we're, before us now is whether we would like the Citizens Advisory Committee to recommend to the Board of Directors to consider smoke testing the Mendoza Pump Station tributary area to locate inflow sources.
That's exactly the question. And I do want to say, as I said before on President Pump Station, you guys asked a lot of questions and made great recommendations. So it's good to be here.
I think alternative too should be just a drone over the,
They may have a drone. I don't know.
oh, no, over that, fairgrounds.
Right.
Do we have a motion to recommend the smoke test to the board?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, second Andrew. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Hammers.
Nice to see you, Mike, and committee members. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks.
Could I ask one more question?
Of course.
Sealing, the manhole sealing, would it be worth the time to put in or implement something that says every X amount of years we automatically reseal for X amount of months?
Yes.
Rather than just do it once and hope it lasts forever?
Exactly right. They do pop out, get pushed in, manholes get moved. Yes, I think that's what we found out this past winter, was that we should have been out there more.
Yeah, you just say whatever you think it is, year.
Agreed, 100%. And Scott's already noted that, and
These should just be automatically resealed
Yes.
regardless of the condition.
absolutely correct. It's a good point. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is a report on the multifamily solid waste proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to turn this over to Nabila Guzman, who's going to give you a brief overview of our plan proposal. To give you a brief background, a few months ago when we had a liaison committee meeting with the city officials, Mesa Water District and the school district officials, discussion was talking about with the city officials about the sanitary district taking over the multifamily units. As you know, we just provide trash collections for single families and very minimal multifamily units with more than 4 units. So there was an open discussion about us putting a proposal together and present it to the city and see if they like it or not, and possibly we take over on all the multifamily collections. So we've been strategizing on a proposal. I'm going to have Nabila kind of give you more like a 30,000-foot view of what we're thinking about, and we're planning on meeting with the city here in a few weeks. But I'm going to turn over to Nabila, and she's going to brief you on what we've been thinking, and we're very much interested to hear your comments, suggestions, questions, and go from here. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. District staff has prepared a proposal to provide solid waste collection service to all multifamily homes. As you know, the district offers more than just curbside collection. We have a variety of award-winning programs and services that we offer to our residents. The proposal outlines the various benefits of merging all residential customers under CMSD franchise, such as an improvement in programs and services to residents that currently have dumpster service, and savings to the city of Costa Mesa if they were to hand over their residential franchise. The proposal briefly details the current problems with split residential service, such as the number of trucks operating under the open market system. The city of Costa Mesa uses 11 haulers currently to service all their multifamily and commercial properties. Each one of these haulers has a fleet of vehicles. They don't just use one vehicle to collect trash, so that means more trash trucks on the road. And according to multiple reports, solid waste drivers, it's the 5th most dangerous job in the country. I think it's higher than police and fire, being a fireman. So being in the trash truck, you have a lot of blind spots. It creates a lot of safety hazards. So having 11 haulers with their fleets driving around the city obviously creates a lot of safety hazards for residents. Additionally, haulers participating in the open market system do not have programs in place to dispose of abandoned items left behind by customers they serve. As we've heard before, residents in multifamily homes don't have a way to dispose of large items. And as we've heard from Member Lester, they end up pushing it out to the right-of-way, and then the city has to dispatch their crew to dispose and then to pick up and then dispose of the item, which is costing the city money. So that is a saving that we are proposing to the city. If they were to hand over their franchise, we would save them that money annually. Staff has also identified possible challenges associated with the proposed residential merge, such as hiring additional staff to assist in the management of the franchise contract. Staff is proposing hiring a management assistant and a part-time code enforcement officer. The city has a dumpster enclosure ordinance, so we would need a second part-time code enforcement officer to go around and patrol those areas and make sure that the dumpsters are in compliance with city ordinances. Additionally, the district's educational and outreach budget would need to be doubled to account for all the new solid waste customers. Currently, we have a newsletter going out to all of our solid waste customers. If we bring on the multifamily residents, that's about double. That would double our residential base, so we would need to amend our contracts and account for all those new residents. If the city of Costa Mesa accepts the proposal, CMSD would need to go out to bid to provide dumpster service for multifamily residential customers. Currently, our contract with CR&R only allows for bin service, and all multifamily units for multifamily homes of 4 units or less. So there is no price structure for dumpster service and what the base cost for that should be. So we would need to go out for out to RFP and have all different haulers bid. Go from there. Additionally, the district would also need to conduct a rate study, how much it would cost to provide this dumpster and account for the administrative cost and come out with a rate. A Prop 218 notices would need to go out. So similarly, like with the solid waste rate increase, we would need to do town hall meetings, we would need to hold a public hearing, so CMSD would need to absorb the Prop 218 cost. Total revenues and expenditures. Revenues are unknown at this time just because we don't know the exact number of multifamily homes and the number of units. But anticipated expenses, again, would be the full-time management assistant, the part-time code enforcement officer, increasing our education and outreach budget, the rate study, and Proposition 218 cost. I am available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Guzman. So I have two questions, I guess. So you're looking at only incorporating multifamily residents, which if passed, that would leaves only commercial with the city?
Correct.
And there is no plan to, at this point, to include commercial?
Eventually, CMSD would like to include commercial and industrial properties, but at the moment, the city is unsure of how many multifamily homes they service. So it is a daunting task to take on figuring out how many multifamily homes and how many commercial businesses there are. So staff has figured that if we take over multifamily first and show the city that it's a smooth transition and that we can take on all these extra residents and provide the services, then it'll be easier to then propose to take over commercial and industrial properties.
And then as a follow-up, if so theoretically it could be a different waste hauler that would be servicing the multifamilies, and then another waste hauler serving single family. It could be. Is the plan then to also offer the other programs that the district offers to single family residents to also offer those to the multifamily, so like large item pickup or door-to-door HHW?
Yes, so in the RFP, the district would spell out what we want for the hauler to provide. So we would want the same exact services that current residents have the opportunity to take advantage of. So the large item pickups, the door-to-door HHW, the organics. So we would want the exact same level of service to be offered for multifamily residents.
Great. Thank you.
Yes?
So I think you said at the moment if it's a fourplex or less, the district already services it, is presumably with the same size bins, and they just kind of bring those to an area where
So it's everybody has the same cart. So if anybody in the city of Costa Mesa has carts, they are serviced by CMSD. So
if it's a large property, like if I were in a position to buy a large apartment complex and I wanted to switch the trash hauler, does the city dictate based on the address what my options would be, or they have an approved list?
So they just direct you to their website. You can just type in trash and then that list comes up. It's 11 haulers, and then it's on you to contact each hauler, tell them how many.
And then if this eventually got adopted and the district found a provider that was within the rate schedule that the city is looking for, then under that scenario, it was dictated you would just work with the
Exactly. Kind of like when residents move in and buy any home in Costa Mesa, they have no choice. They have to set up service with us, or unless they want a dumpster in their home.
And would payment of the solid waste go through property taxes for those?
No, there are different sizes of dumpsters, and like we found out with the rate study, our system does not allow for customization, and it does not allow for different rate structures.
Based on those larger complexes?
So we would ask the hauler to build them directly, just because you can have a dumpster for mixed waste, kind of like we have with our car, or you can have a dumpster for just trash and a dumpster for recycling, or you can have a mixed waste dumpster and organic cart. So there's just so many variations. And residents move out of apartments all the time, so you might have a 10-unit complex that produces a little trash. If half of them move out and then you get big families that move in, you might need that dumpster emptied out 2 or 3 times a week versus just once. So that can fluctuate throughout the year, so it's just better to let the hauler do the billing.
Director Rutan?
for the city to, those 11 haulers probably paid the city $1.6 million. That used to be the revenue. So what the city does is they take 17% of the haulers' income. Right, we thought through how much revenue the city is going to lose, and
The city currently has a 16% franchise fee. So when you call to set up service, let's say CRNR, they quote you a dumpster, a 3-yard dumpster, which is a typical one, emptied once a week would be, let's say, $90. And then they say, and there's a city tax of $12. They say city tax, but really what it means, it's a franchise fee. The city passes that on to residents, and it helps pay for roads, or it helps fund city services or programs. The city currently, this budget, 1920, they budgeted $2.4 million a year from their solid waste franchise. But I still do not know. I need to find out how many properties there are, how many of them are from the multifamily, and how much of that money is from commercial, because it just lumps it as solid waste franchise fees.
So are they looking to keep that revenue in place somehow from a fee from the district, or would there be an offset because their services they provide would be reduced?
CMSD would propose splitting that fee in a certain way. The trash trucks are really heavy. They wear and tear down the streets a lot faster than any other truck. So they should be able to keep some of that franchise money for road repairs. But again, CMSD would need to cover some of their administrative and programs. So that fee would then need to be divided.
When I was on one of the tours, we went on a CR&R. I asked the guy in charge specifically about that. I said, hypothetically speaking, if you are given the opportunity to bid and be the only hauler for this whole new service, how would you compensate the city on all those franchise fees that they would be losing by having 11 haulers? And the guy at CR&R said we would make up that cost to get that account. So I don't know if every hauler feels that way or if it even moves in that direction. I would ask them to cough it up for all the money that they're going to get.
A hauler?
If they want it bad enough.
So again, when you place out an RFP, the district or the agency can stipulate what their wants, their needs, what they prefer. So that is something that, as this moves forward, we can bring back to the committee for suggestions.
Director?
I think one of the big advantages to having a central single hauler is you don't have wear going from the east side to the west side to the north side to the south side to the east side. You follow those trucks around and, there's 6 of them going down the alley, 6 different vendors going down the alley because they each contracted with that property owner. I think that'd be one of the enormous.
It used to be 16 haulers.
Pardon?
They used to have 16 haulers.
Well, they used to be, they had up to 16.
Yeah.
And, I don't even know if they have 11 now. The numbers all over the place, depending on what the trash companies.
Really breaks up the streets.
Just having one trash truck go down the alley, it's going to be a logistical, interesting logistical process because on Tuesday they go down the alley and then on Wednesday.
They go every day.
Yeah.
They go every day.
Yeah.
In my neighborhood, every single day.
They just go everywhere, every day. So the reason logic, I think it's important, not just, there wouldn't be any fewer trash trucks. Maybe tiny difference in the number.
But on the other hand, there may be more, right, if we're introducing organics collection to that as well?
Now, did the city say that they don't know how many commercial properties they have, or we don't know if they know?
They stated a number, and we have 6 times. Our records show that there's 6 times the amount of properties that they stated, which is why there's a little more research needs to be done.
So they're probably going off the number of people who pay business licenses, and obviously not everybody has one.
No, the number they stated was for multifamily homes specifically, not commercial.
Okay.
So because we want to do multifamilies first, the commercial number, I did not ask for that number.
Won't the census information help with that, or that just counts bodies, not buildings?
It can, but that information would not be available until 2021, 2022. So that is a long time from now.
Yeah.
Do we know if we'll have to continue the contracts that they already entered into, or we'll be able to cease those and enter into?
The city provides, to be a hauler in the city, you have to get a permit annually. So it's an annual permit that gets renewed.
That's cool.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Guzman.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our agenda, this is a follow-up to our last meeting. We were discussing the possibility of adjusting or changing the date of this meeting. Is there anybody on the committee that has some feedback, suggestions? Move it, keep it?
Yeah, I know there was a little bit of concern the last time because we didn't have enough people here. So I think now that we have a nice amount of people here, we can probably get this broken down to the amount of time that we want it to be done.
Yeah, right. I'd like to keep it on Wednesdays, only because Tuesdays and Thursdays are extremely difficult for me, and Mondays and Fridays are horrible days for meetings. So that's my 2 cents.
Once the duck season starts, games are on Wednesdays.
They're on Wednesdays always?
No, then I can't go to the game.
You can't.
So I can do either day. It doesn't really matter to me, or preferably Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
Yeah, I think that's the general consensus. So
And we have, there's some of the board members and myself, another one here, we have Lions Club, and that's the first and third Tuesday of the month. So second and fourth would be open for all of us.
Okay.
Or Wednesday's fine.
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays.
And the Planning Commission, I guess, is Thursdays.
And you have an obligation on Wednesday, right?
I have a potential obligation on Wednesday. So it sounds like Wednesday works best for everybody except possibly for me, and we can address that in the. It would be if my class teaches.
When will you know for sure? Because, I mean, our next meeting is when? September? Our next scheduled meeting is September?
Definitely know by then, but we could just keep it on Wednesday for now and then adjust if necessary, I suppose.
Well, my situation might change too. So that's what
Kind
I'm
of the same
saying.
place we
As of
were
right
last
now,
month.
it hasn't, but it might.
Okay, do we have a motion to table this one more meeting?
What's wrong with Thursday when the planning commission's not meeting?
Out of deference to Ms.
I didn't
Lester
hear
and
the
some of the
question.
others.
I couldn't hear.
Sorry, the question was, what is the conflict or potential problem for Thursdays?
I can't come Thursdays.
That's a
Thursday
conflict?
nights. I can't.
Personal business. So, yeah, second his
His motion to table.
motion to table.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Okay, that's
The next meeting on the second Wednesday or the third Wednesday?
the third Wednesday. So it'd be the third Wednesday in, what is it? September 18th. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so next up on the agenda is committee member and staff comments. Do we have any in the spirit of conserving time?
I do.
Just in light of the earthquakes that happened recently, I just wanted to ask, as far as emergency preparedness, is there any sort of plan in place? I assume there must be, but I haven't discussed that recently.
Yes, we've taken necessary measures to prepare for earthquakes. We've had several years back, we had a seismic study done on our pump stations, and one of the issues that we need to address, which we did, was to bolt down all of the electrical panels. So when the ground shakes, they don't tip over, and then we lose power. So we made sure they are bolted to the ground. Last year or a year and a half ago, we had a tabletop, an emergency operations center tabletop exercise with all the staff, and the scenario was an earthquake. And so we prepared and how do we respond to an earthquake? So we came up with certain scenarios and addressed those issues. And actually it was very, very helpful because there was a lot of lessons learned. And from those lessons learned, we took notes and continued to improve. We do what we can with emergency preparedness. We also keep in contact with other agencies. In the event of a disaster, you don't need mutual aid. So we do have agreements in place. So we receive mutual aid from other organizations if needed. I believe we're ready, but you never know until the big one really happens. But we continue planning.
Resiliency is a very hot topic now, considering the wildfires and other natural disasters, both locally, statewide, and nationally. I think we're all going to be hearing a lot more about that.
I think there's some office opportunities. Orange County 10 District, we went through and we Velcroed down computers and monitors and things and looked up what was high on the shelves and either fastened them down or Velcroed them down. I'll try to find that study. It was many years ago. So I think there's some maybe some further look we need to do or could do.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. The next CAC meeting is the second Wednesday of September, which would be 9/11. Is it the committee's pleasure to keep it on 9/11, or would you like to have it on the 18th?
Be out of town on the
No objection?
So Member Katz will be out of town on the 11th. Anybody else?
What, the 11th?
Either one.
Okay. Is there a recommend? Keep it on the 11th?
On the 18th?
On the 11th.
Wait.
On the 11th?
Yeah, keep it on the 11th.
Everybody make it on the 18th? We might as well accommodate Elodie.
I'm good with either.
It's the same to everybody else.
Okay.
I didn't want to speak for everybody else.
I'm good with either.
We'll keep on
The 18th?
Okay.
Thank you.
18th it is. Okay, and this, no,
I have a couple things if everyone else is done, because I wasn't here last time. I wanted to thank, there was a conversation, and Judith G., I think it was, brought up the interest in having a tiered cart system. And in the minutes, it said that the CAC voted to recommend to the board to keep it. That was actually a split vote, with one vote going in favor of doing a universal increase. I agree with you. I think people should pay for what they use. I still would like the board at some point going forward to approve giving you guys the abilities on your computers to do that. I think you said it was going to cost $50,000 or something. The way I see money flying around, I think that would be something good to invest in and hold CR&R responsible for actually knowing what carts they have where, because it's my understanding they don't even know that at this point, which I think is just bad business. We're charging people equally for carts we don't even know they have. So I would just like to thank Judith for chiming in about that. The other question I have relates to the board approved a consumer price index increase to CR&R. And it's my understanding that that the district was under no obligation to give them that increase, which was 5.8%, but they voted 4-1 without even all the financial information available to approve that. I'm going to say gift it, because they were under no obligation to do it. I understand that CR&R didn't have that kind of increase for 11 years. Like, I get it, trying to be fair and everything, but what did that translate to in dollars? I didn't see that in any of the minutes.
It's because the financial information is confidential. We could not release that to the public, and that was a big discussion with the board of directors. They didn't see the numbers. They pretty much have to trust what our district treasurer is telling them, because that was part of the negotiations. They allowed us to review their books, but we agreed that we would not disclose any financial information because it's confidential.
So the board of directors voted 4-1 to gift CR&R 5.8% as a CPI increase, but we don't even know in dollars what that 5.8% translate to?
It was not a gift. District Treasurer Mark Davis indicated to the board that their profit margins was not significant and deserved, or not deserved, but could justify a rate increase based on his findings, based on what he saw. It wasn't the profit margins wasn't as significant as we might think of. Again, they haven't had a rate CPI, like you said, a CPI increase in over 10 years, and so according to this treasurer's recommendation, the board approved the CPI. It wasn't a gift.
I'm calling it a gift. I know that it's not a public gift of funds, but the reason I'm calling it a gift is because there was zero contractual obligation for the district to do that. So a lot of people that are getting hammered with increases to their services, which again, the people in Costa Mesa haven't had an increase in many years. I get that. But the timing on this is extremely unfortunate, because you're telling all of your ratepayers that they're getting all of these increases equally, universally, regardless of what their usage is, because they haven't had an increase in a long time. Then you're turning around and you're opting to give the vendor, who's getting a rate increase anyway from your ratepayers, a consumer price index increase at the same time. So I'm just asking what that dollar increase is.
That money is coming to. Yeah, the increase is coming to Costa Mesa. It's not going to them, right?
It's part of the rate increase.
You can take 5.8% of $6 million, and that's approximately.
Yeah, I don't know the difference. It's in the staff report.
So it's like $300,000 extra. Okay.
And we also gave the lawyer and staff and others a single year CIP increase, and that was around 2.5%. So they're in the ballpark. And they were 2 years, that data was in 2 years in arrears. So 2 years ago, when those were numbers we could verify.
Okay. And then if I read it incorrectly, please straighten me out. But CR&R can ask for another CPI increase in 21-22, correct?
2 years, yeah. We negotiated a contract, and I would have preferred, in hindsight, it would be annually, but it's every 2 years.
Okay.
Just one follow-up to her point. The rate increase that I think goes out several years, 5-year plan, does that account for such vendor fee increases along the way?
That rate increase for the next year did take in consideration the CPI increase. It did, yes.
So you don't anticipate rate increases as a result of the
No, we don't.
fees?
Okay, hearing no other comments, we will adjourn this meeting at 7:30 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Am I